Well, hi everyone. It's episode 3. I am Kim Solomon. You can see my name down at the bottom there. And we this week we are joined by the fabulous Tracey Dennis from Owl and the Sewing Cat. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Very good.
And also we have the
The real
Solomon
Kim
has the
Solomon.
real Kim Solomon at the bottom, who's run away to Spain. Um, And yes, we're all very jealous. I mean, look at the sky that's at the back of Kim there. If you give us a little, oh, there we go. Rub it in even more. Oh, there we
Yeah.
go. How
Oh,
lovely.
And cheers, everybody.
Well, cheers. I can tell this episode's going to be interesting. So, a few things off the top. So we run not a competition. We run a giveaway every single week, and last week's giveaway was from the fabulous Visaline company, and up for grabs was some Framalam tape.
Framalastic.
Framalastic. Framalam elastic. So, and we can announce the winner. Do you want to announce the winner, Kim?
Yes, so the winner this week is Kim Bevan. Kim, if you can just privately message us with your email address, and then we will make sure that that gets sent out to you directly. So thank you very much for liking and commenting. And of course, this week, we've also got another offering from Fleasaline, and it's the brand new iron-on cloths and iron cleaner, which everybody should have. So to be in for a chance to win that giveaway, you need to like and share this post and spread the word.
Perfect. Now, we also have so last week was a bit of a strange it was a bit of a mixed view because we had Lizzie Curtis, who had a slightly different view to the rest of us. But thank you all so much for all of your comments. Really, really great that everyone's getting involved. So this week, the Sewing Bee took a trip to West Africa. And there was no expense spared with the VT at the beginning with the backdrop. We had a very interesting guest who was a fellow Central St. Martin's student called Banky Cuckoo. And Banky Cuckoo is from, I think was she from Ghana?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. I think she was I may have got that wrong. But the first challenge, which is the pattern challenge, was they had to make now I'm going to try and pronounce this correctly, a batakari. Now, for everyone, just to recap, so a batakari is essentially it's a men's top which has straight sewn panels, and then you put a goudets in, or gussets really, if you like, triangular shape at the bottom to add flair to the bottom of it. It's quite a simple garment. It has a neckline that you put in, and it also has the sides sewn up with some facings. And they used so I am reading from my notes because there's quite a lot of technical things from West Africa. I think it was pronounced a debulii or a debula, the actual fabric that we're using to create the thing, which is a sort of a 6 centimeter woven strip, which is traditionally dyed with indigo. So that's what the challenge was. So I will just, in fact, we'll ask Tracey Dennis to start us off. What did you think of the pattern challenge?
I thought it was nice to see something different, a different way of putting things together. I thought it was interesting the way that basically they created the fabric, a big enough piece of fabric using the small strips. That was quite an interesting way of doing it. It was a relatively simple thing that I'm surprised they had the problems that they did. They had to get the face in the right place. You simply fold it in half and you can work out where your neckline is going to go. I thought that was not too difficult. And to put the pockets, I mean, some of them literally have pockets that they're armpits. I mean, you just needed the measurement up from the hem or a bit of common sense to just hold it on yourself, put it on the mannequin. You would even if you had to guess it, you would get those a bit better than they were. I thought that was quite strange that they couldn't get the pockets in the right place. But I like the method that they were doing it, and I like to see it, say, a different way of constructing that was good. The V-neck, they all seem to manage that quite okay, because sometimes those V's can be quite difficult. I know at the Allen Sewing Camp, we're doing a new V-neck top for this week, actually, and that's got that point in it. It's something that people get a bit nervous about. I mean, personally, I always say go all the way down to the bottom of the V, and then I just pivot just one stitch. You won't even notice that stitch when you turn it through. Just pivot one stitch across and then back up the other side, and you've got to snip it right into that V. And they all seem to handle that okay, because that's what people that and turning the facing in. I didn't see them edge the facing. I'm surprised they didn't just overlock around it, or even when they turned it under by a set, it seemed quite a big, they were just turning the wedge under by 1 centimetre onto there. Other things I thought were a bit weird, like so I thought it was a great way of constructing, because the fabric strips are obviously neatened on the edge because of the way it's woven back and through, so there was no neating involved in that. But of course, once you started cutting your triangles, your godos, I wondered how they neaten the edge of those to stop those, because once you're cutting through that, you're cutting diagonally on the bias, that it's gonna fray, I would assume, quite a lot. They didn't talk about neating, they didn't seem to neaten those at all. I mean, I would have maybe just overlocked all of those before you inserted them. There should have been enough time in the process. You know, you still want the inside, the garment to stand up, don't you? You know, it needs to be neatened and finished somehow, particularly when you're cutting on the bias of presumably quite an openish weave garment. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a nice, different sort of challenge. Just surprised at the stumbling bits that they found with it, really.
Yeah, so what they could have used, Tracy, as well, is they could have maybe used, depending on the thickness of the fabric, either an edge tape or a bias tape. If it was particularly for the V-neck, the bias tape. But if they'd used the edge tape on the edge of those bias seams, that would have potentially stopped some of the raveling as well. I do find it quite frustrating. We've talked about this before, that we know that the products are there, but the education isn't given to the contestants, shall we say, about how to use those particular products that we know are in the haberdashery. So you feel sorry for them, because we know that they're there and they don't know how to use them, and that maybe would help them. It would stop them setting up themselves up for failure, and also give a more professional finish at the end.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, look, I don't know what a traditional batikari, how it's actually constructed, but I just thought that a lot of things could have been simplified. Like there could have been a shoulder seam. I don't see why there couldn't have been one. And also, I would have just fully lined that out. I wouldn't have, because in actual fact, it was actually really impractical, because that fabric against your skin, especially, your let's just say it would chafe on the front is the polite way of putting it. But I just felt it was a very simplistic pattern, and I can't really understand. And your point, Tracy, I completely agree with the fact that when they were actually turning things through, it was just, in fact, I've just completely lost my train of thought, because there is somebody desperate to try and get hold of me on my phone.
Was it bulky?
And it's going, well, sorry, no, I know what I was going to say. It's about the neckline. So for instance, when they were positioning that, a much easier way of actually doing that would have been to have folded the garment in half, and then you would know where the back part meets to come to the front, and you'd mark the front part first. You'd put some little chalk marks, you'd open it out, and then you'd draw in the back. That would have been much easier, but they were literally trying to guesstimate the middle of the and I'm thinking that just doesn't. And a shoulder seam, if they'd had one, would have helped. But I just felt the fabric. My biggest bugbear, and everyone I'm sure would have seen this last night, one, rotary cutters just in dressmaking just should be completely banned. And the other thing as well, did you see the waste of the fabric where they were actually placing the pattern pieces to cut it out? They were almost like they had the bolt on the fold, and some of them, I've forgotten who it was, had used red, and she placed a pocket, which is essentially a square, right in the middle of the fabric and wasted the whole bit. And I was thinking, gosh, well, she's obviously got a lot of money to spend, because I wouldn't be cutting out like that. What else did I write down? The other thing that I found a bit strange was when you saw them pressing out the seam allowance, which I understand when they were pressing it around, so that when they folded it under, that would have given them that line to do. I think if they had used, if they had simply done a mini facing onto the facing itself all the way round, either scant cut round that and then press that under, because you, with that bulk of fabric, you don't need to worry about adding extra bulk. And when that was flat in the inside, it would give you a perfect edge to actually go around. But you saw them trying to edge round. But if they'd used a large stitch around the, the corners, then you could have drawn that in slightly, and that would have ruched it ever so slightly, and then that would have pressed it into a really nice thing. But I mean, they've got how long was it? About 3 hours or so to do that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 3.5 hours, the first challenge, isn't it?
Yeah. But like you say, if you put a line in, just drop a line in through the whole thing, it would have had to have had something for the go days, like a split, or actually put go days in it. But yeah, that would be the easy way. I mean, I liked that you saw the pop of color. That was really nice. So you could see that on the armhole, and you could see that in the pocket. And I thought that, that was really nice. And most of them chose really nice colors that kind of pulled that out. And I thought that was lovely. But yeah, I wouldn't mess around like that. I would just drop a line in through the whole thing. I don't think it would even take that much more fabric. By the time you've done the neck face and the armhole face in your pockets and all of that, it doesn't take much to just drop a line in all the way through.
And I can't believe either that in actual fact that's not how it's actually constructed. It must have a lining or something inside. I mean, if you're using Dutch wax cottons, fair enough, you can get away with not lining that because that's soft against the body. But that material looked really thick, and it looked really rough as well. So I can't imagine it being very comfortable to wear. But then again, that's so Asma won the first round. Did you all agree with that?
She's such a beautiful sewist at the end of the day. She's good.
Yeah, she knows what she's doing. She does it technically correct. She listens to the brief and she follows it through. And yeah, her fabric choice was good. So
yeah.
Perfect. So we'll move on to so the next segment was the draping challenge. And in the draping challenge, they were all given a length of fabric in which to drape and create a garment onto the dummy. And the ethos was that it had to be had to show drama and had to show that you were purposely, the drapes weren't just plonked on, it was thought out. But they only had, I think it was an hour and a half, it was 90 minutes for this
90 minutes to get that. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still getting over this cold. So Lizzie won that segment for the draping challenge, which was I actually thought was really beautiful. I actually thought she had really, really, really thought it out. You could see that where she was, she was running her hands over it and she was making sure that the pleats were all in the right place. And I just thought it just all fitted in. What did you think, Tracy?
Yeah, I agree. She definitely listened to the brief. She knew how to make that fabric work. And like you say, she was really and she was so excited. That challenge, this is the challenge that's brought her back into the competition, as far as I see it. It lifted her confidence. Even if she hadn't won, she was loving every minute of it. And when you love what you do, you could see now, all of a sudden, from that challenge onwards, I felt like the passion was back in her. Whereas the other contestant who went out, Maria, I felt like she'd lost her confidence in that. So I think that kind of influence, and it does, you know, we all lose our confidence with our sewing or generally with things every now and again. And it's very hard to get out of that once you've kind of lost your confidence. And unfortunately, I think that's what happened to Maria. The challenge, she didn't rise to the challenge, whereas Lizzie was like, right, come on, I've got to do this, I know I can do it. And she kind of did, and it was beautiful. I mean, the only thing is, it's great being able to do it, but would you be able to get into the dress? Would it function? How you can actually be able to wear it is a different thing. But I think she understood what the fabric needed, whereas other people, I think, were trying to get the fabric to do something that it didn't really want to, you know, to put a frill on the bottom of a dress, as Tony R did. I mean, that fabric doesn't want a gathered frill around the hem. That's not what that fabric is meant to do. It's a sculptured fabric. Let the fabric do the work. It's telling you what it wants to do. Lauren's was beautiful. The blue one, if you remember, she had like a little so almost like boob tube and then a sash thing going over it. I thought she'd worked hers really, really well as well. I mean, Asma's was good, but she just didn't, technically it was really, really good. She had all the pleats and that nice little hook to it. She understood all of that. However, she wasn't allowing the fabric to do anything. It could have just been done in a plain cotton or linen and it would have done the same thing. So she wasn't allowing fabric to showcase. Whereas I think the thing with Lizzie was she understood that this is what you've got, this is the fabric, do something that's going to allow the fabric to shine. It wasn't all about, and that's what design is, isn't it? It's mixing what you've got in your head and the fabric that you see, and they've both got to come together and work. You can't get every fabric to work every designer and vice versa. So I think Lizzie just really listened to that, and from that she grew, whereas others kind of, it started to show that, you know, they don't necessarily how to work the fabrics. But I think we go back to that same thing. Are we looking at design or are we looking at sewing skills? Two different things. What are we judging them on? I don't know. That's always the slight difficult thing.
This is my whole thing with this transformation challenge, and everybody you speak to and the comments that we've had over the last few weeks as well, is get rid of that challenge. And I've spoken to previous contestants and it's exactly that. It's called the Great British Sewing Bee, not the Great British Designing Bee. And I think there's the difference. Asma, you've got is an amazing sewist, and then you've got others who are better at transforming fabric. But you hit the nail on the head, Tracy. Can you actually wear that garment? No. You can pin, you can pleat, you can stitch, but would it stand up to walk, you know, to being put on a human form and walking around? And often all of these transformations won't do that.
No. And Mia was an exact example of that. Her top sort of, if you remember, came down over the boob and then underneath. That's fine. But the moment you turn to your right, you are going to fall out of that top. It doesn't matter how much boob tape you've got. That is not going to be a practical thing. Don't go wearing that on your bike ride, will you, Kim, this afternoon? Because
not with my boobs, no. It definitely would not work.
Well, you see, now, if Kim Bevan is actually watching, you can use your Framalam elastic just to put that at the back, because it's transparent as well. So if you're going to do that design, Kim Bevan, just make sure you put some Framalam elastic on the back. That'll keep you all nice and in place.
And send us a photo as well. Would love to see it.
On then to the end challenge, because I think we always say the same with the transformation is let's move on.
But why don't they do like when they did the rucksack bag the other week? That's great. Okay, look, we're showing something different. The viewers are getting to see something different. You can see a bit more of the construction when you're making a bag like that, whereas just sewing a long seam on camera is boring, so they cut that bit out. Whereas a bag, you see a lot more of the construction. Sewing, as I said before, it's all encompassing. So why not, you know, do something completely different? Why not say, right, we want you to design a cushion to go in this, you know, this barn, or this is someone's sewing room. What can you design to make it nice for them? This is grandma's, you know, little library. What would you design to make that challenge? Something like that just shows them some different elements sewing. I mean, I've been helping a woman who's lost the beak off her chicken that was the end of the world, then designing a new top, and then going back to we've got to finish a bag for our club members. And that's the great thing about it, is you can switch from one process to another. And the viewers have seen so much dressmaking. Why not take that transformation challenge and make that into something a bit more encompassing of different, of different sewing processes, and test them that way.
Yeah. So before we move on to the end, Tracy, obviously some people may not know who you are, but you have your own business, which is the Owl and the Sewing Cat. You regularly appear on Sewing Street.
Yeah.
And obviously you have your own club. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about you, because you do dressmaking and craft projects, so you cross over beautifully. And I can say hand on heart that I use a lot of your dressmaking packs. I can't wait to see your new ones and give them a try. But yet your packs are particularly straightforward and easy, and the instructions are really good to follow.
Thank you.
Tell people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've got a business called the Owl and Sewing Cat. So we're online, but we also go onto Sewing Street as well. So I'm on this Tuesday, actually. Tuesday morning, I've got kind of 3 hours of different shows. So we do a lot of crafting, all the projects sit around, some dressmaking. This is a new dressmaking top we've got here. The top that I'm wearing is actually a twist top. It's one of our patterns that I designed years ago before it was on the Sewing Bee, but it's a much looser version of it. We've got our own box rucksack, which is kind of a bit similar to the one that you saw on the week 2, I think it was, where they did the rucksack. So yeah, the patterns that I do, very, very simple, designs that will suit sort of all ages as well. Yeah, from crafting all the way through to dressmaking, because if you've got a sewing machine, there's nothing stopping you doing any of these things. So we have a website. We're going to do an offer for all the viewers on here. So if you want 25% off PDF patterns, so our patterns are either full scale, where we send them out in the post to you, or we do them as PDFs on A4 paper that you just print at home. So the twist top that I'm wearing, you can order it now, print it at home, and then you can be sewing this afternoon. Just tape the A4 sheets together. So that's what the PDFs are. So if you want 25% off, just go to our website. It's just for this week while we're doing this promotion here with you guys. Put your order through. So you tap into sewing patterns and put whatever you want on the shop. There's different sections: dressmaking, bags, kitchen, garden, whatever you're looking for. And then place your order, and then at the end you'll need a coupon code. So the coupon code is Sewing Bee, all one word, Sewing Bee. We're going to do it so it's uppercase and lowercase. Is it upper and lower, or just lower? Yeah, upper and lower, and then you'll get 25% off all your PDFs. So you can do that, download. But there's free ones as well. So just look at owlandsewingcat.com. So owlandsewingcat.com. Look up the free ones that are on there. Some little simple free ones. If you need to sew in, just give it a go, print them out, and have fun. Enjoy sewing.
Great. And I'll make sure that the link goes on, so if anybody doesn't see that, even if they miss the promotion, if they're watching this later, then they can easily go and see you. Thanks, Tracy, for doing that.
Thank you.
And then so then the very last section was everyone had to make a boo-boo, not a bobo, a boo-boo. And just anyone that hasn't watched it, a boo-boo is essentially a very airy, wafty sort of caftan kind of garment. So it's not a specific style. It's just that, well, that's what they call a lot of different things. So you could have a caftan. I've forgotten what Asma said her Arabic version was, but there's lots and lots and lots of different variants. But essentially it is a floaty garment that is not body conscious. Now I was a little bit surprised they chose that for the made to measure, because in my view, yes, it's a very flattering and can be a very stunning outfit, if you like, but the whole premise, I thought, for that segment was to challenge them on making sure that on a model, on an actual person, that garment fits perfectly, whereas you can hide an enormous amount of, for instance, there's no darts, there's no shaping, there's nothing really that essentially could go wrong with that shape of garment, because it is a loose fitting garment, and a lot of them used lots and lots of different fabrics. So we'll go to Kim this time. So what did you think of the actual boo-boos.
I think what you've got to do is when you're looking at these particular designs, I think I was surprised at the shape of the garment, although I love that shape because it hides a multitude of sins. I think what people have got to do is make sure that again, it goes back to choosing the right fabric, being able to use the right stitches on the sewing machine for the fabric, use the interfacings that are out there, which, to be fair, the Sewing Bee very rarely talks about the stuff on the inside that can do the work and make it a professional finish. So I do feel that that challenge was a particularly easier design than we've had in the past, and no doubt we'll have in the future. And I question sometimes the whole format of and what's going through the producers' heads when they're putting these shows together. What are they wanting to see? Is it just colour placement? Because we all know Esme is happy if she's got a big bow and she likes the colours. So yeah, I have. It wasn't necessarily my favourite thing this time. I didn't think it necessarily pushed everybody's skills to the limit, particularly when you're bringing a professional or semi-professional model to and again, it goes down to the models on the cat who's a catwalk model showing off that garment and who is not a catwalk model. We've talked about it previous weeks. You can have your QVC style, shopping TV style models who cannot walk a catwalk. Others can do that catwalk and make a garment look fabulous, regardless of what it is. So yeah. Tracy, what did you think?
I agree. I think it's a very strange one for a made to measure. I mean, these kind of garments, they are great, you know, thinking from my age range upwards, you know, they are flattering for all styles. I love them. However, generally, if you were going to buy something like that, it's one size fits all. You know, you might tie it in with a belt or whatever, but it's not really a made to measure challenge. I thought there were some lovely pieces in there. I mean, I dread to think how much they would cost to make. I mean, the scarlet satin, it's satin back crepe, I think, that Fave, the world. The amount of fabric that there must have been in that, it would cost an absolute fortune, but beautiful, you know, it was lovely. And it's that same question again, is it design or are we looking at sewing skills? Because Asma's was so many processes in that. I mean, I think she was just way too ambitious that unfortunately then it did look a bit amateur. It might only just be the buttons and it needed a press and whatever, but unfortunately that's the thing that you look at, whereas the more simpler ones that were done, I thought it was a shame for Maria, because actually, you know, that fabric that she chose was really hard to work with, and she did a good job. I was expecting at the end to see a bit of a mess, to be honest, because she was so deflated, she was so negative. Unfortunately, I think on the last challenge she just lost her way, that then when it was on the model I was like, oh my god, actually she has done a really good job. I agreed with the trim. It didn't need both. It needed one or the other. But I mean, that's no big deal, is it? She just gave herself a bit extra work, and she probably felt like she might get a bit extra points for it. I like the gold trim around the neck. But yeah, it was better than I kind of thought it was going to be. I love Mia's as well. That was really nice. That was the one that was gathered, the off the shoulder. Because that same thing, I think she understood the fabric and what that fabric needed to showcase it. The two fabrics worked really well together, and the style looked great on. I mean, and it's not easy to, I imagine that fabric's very stiff, so to be doing all that elasticating because it was so wide is hard to kind of get that. That's tough to get that right so that it's not bunching too much, but it needs enough. So I thought that was, you know, a really good job. So yeah, that's kind of where I thought on them. I mean, I love Liz's, you know, I like the impact of it. That was the colour block one that was gathered up at the middle. And when that walked out, I thought, oh yeah, as soon as I saw her colours that she'd chosen, I thought, oh, that's just great. But technically, I don't think it deserved Garment of the Week, because I didn't think it was that, it's not actually that difficult thing. Yes, you've got to handle the fabrics. I appreciate that that's not always easy, but that's part of the process. Once you learn to handle those fabrics, the actual amount of work that went in there is not a massive amount of work. It just looked great. I'd love to have a pattern for that because it did look brilliant. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't think it was a technical Garment of the Week though.
Well, the only thing that so I slightly disagree with you about the trims on Maria's, because there's something that I think there's something that went on that episode, because Maria she was really unsettled from the beginning. And I actually think when you saw Esme, I thought Esme was a little bit unkind because she was sort of saying to her, it's, you know, it's one or the other. And I'm thinking, well, in actual fact, I actually don't think, I actually don't think that, I think if she had put the gold and then sequin trim next to it, I think that would have been a bit much. But because there was a lot of distance between them, I actually thought that that added a little bit of extra interest going around. Sequin trim is not my favorite trim. If that had been in Swarovski's or iron on diamantes or something, then that might have added a little bit. I thought Lizzie's was very dramatic. It was really, really nice. The lightweight silks that she was using really flowed beautifully. The model did it justice. The only thing I really didn't like was, and I think this is the only thing that let it down, was that massive piece of cotton tape that was tied at the bottom, that was all ruched up at the middle. And as the model was walking, that's all you saw. Whereas I think if you'd used some, say, rat's tail, but put it inside and ruched it and tied it there, or at least taken one of the silk fabrics and made some rouleau, your own rouleau to match. I just thought that was a bit of a strange, it ended up for me being a bit reminiscent of a parachute because all I could see was that great big piece of cotton, and it wasn't very flattering when the model was, I mean, look, it was beautiful and the colors were stunning. I mean, she did French seam it all. However, again, Esme was going on about how, you know, oh yes, no, it's all French seamed, and Patrick was going on about, you know, it's all beautiful and what have you. But then when you saw the presenter talking to somebody else about the fact that you know, putting zips in and stuff like that, it's quite evident from the comment. I can't remember exactly what the comment was, but it's just about, well, they don't look at the inside, they're not bothered about the inside, it's all about what the look is on the outside. And I'm thinking, well, it kind of should be a little bit, because it's not.
Yeah, it goes back to what was said before though, Alistair, about the technical and professional finish. If your insides are not sorted out, then you're not going to have that professional look to the garment, and it's not durable. You can't wash it, you can't clean it, because it's just going to fray or fall to bits. So whilst I understand that there, again, it's all down to the time pressure, and you know, there's a lot of things that neither one of us sitting here today would like to be told in 4.5 hours you will produce this particular garment. But yeah, it's a hard one. I do think the insides are as important, as we all do. Insides are as important as the outsides. And again, it goes back to they're not using the right interfacings, etc. And the stuff that we don't see in our garments on the inside that gives you that professional finish. So. Definitely.
And you know, you look at shows like the Bake Off, they don't just look at the overall cake at the end. They look at the cake, they cut it, and then they taste it. This is no different. You need to have a garment that looks good on the stand and on the model, because some models can make anything. You can give them a sheet and it'll look amazing. So it's got to look good on the stand. It's got to be practical, that you can wear it, you can stand up and you can sit down as well, because we've all got dresses that you can only stand up in. They're not really any good day to day. And you need something that's going to last more than one wear. So I think we should be looking at all those, and other reality TV shows do it. And if we have to give them a little bit longer time, and sometimes the finishing is, I know it's all about entertainment, but we've all done it where you've made an amazing dress and then you go to overlock the seam on the inside and you get it caught, and you know, there's still issues that can happen with that. And I think they should be judged properly and fully, as they do on other shows.
That's a great analogy. You get a cake, you open it, you cut it in half. If the inside was a mess, they would fail on the Bake Off, wouldn't it? And
then it has to be edible and practical, and it needs to taste good. So we need to be judged. They should be judging on all of those things as well, not just whether it's got a big bow and looks dramatic on the stand, or, you know, we need to make sure that we're making practical things, because you can make amazing things on the stand, but they're just not practical once you put them on a human body.
I mean, you know what it is? Sorry to interrupt, Alistair. The show's an hour. It wouldn't matter in production whether it took them 10 hours or 8 hours to do that final challenge. Because when it comes to the cutting room and they edit it out, because let's be right, Sewing Bee was filmed, as we all know, last year. They still could achieve their viewing time, but be fairer to the contestants by giving them that longer time to actually achieve a really good garment.
Yeah, definitely. Or even if it went down to 2 challenges, like you say, drop the middle one or do it something different. But it needs to be something that's practical, wearable, and we need to learn, or people need to learn and understand that they need to be finished on the inside as well as the outside.
Yeah, otherwise it doesn't work. You know, when I was younger, my nana used to take me to shopping. And if I used to say, oh, I like that dress, I mean, my nana was a really good seamstress. She would open the inside of the garment and go, you're not buying that. It's not finished off properly. So it works the same, doesn't it?
Well, I thought it was really, really interesting that one comment that really, again, really sort of like threw me, which was Esme, there was a thing at the end where there was a bit of a clip where Esme, and she said that just before it, they were hoping, well, the guest judge whose name was Banky Cuckoo, the judge said she hoped that the boo-boo would tell her something about the person who made it, because that's part of, you know, that's part of the story, but it wasn't part of the criteria. But then Esme then came on and said that, for instance, when she was talking about Lizzie's, it was all about, you know, the journey and everything like that, and about the fact that just rubbing it in now, and the general fact is that, you know, they I think they fell in love with Lizzie's story, that she had been to Africa and she had that African fabric, and that she'd used that to choose the colors and stuff like that. But I thought it was a bit unfair that you're making a garment which is not necessarily culturally in your sights to ever make, if you like. So why would you necessarily have a story to tell about an African garment if you're perhaps not from Africa? I mean,
it's down to making good. It's down to, is this an entertainment show, which Lizzie last week said it was, or is it a sewing show? And it's not a sewing show. It's more the backstories, the people, the different personalities of the people, and the sewing is very much, I think, this is my view, very much secondary to everything else that's going on.
There was a few. So before I ask you both whether you agreed that it was Maria's turn to exit the program, there's a few people that sort of, like, for instance, I actually genuinely thought that Tony R actually didn't have a very good week at all. The first challenge he was pulled up on for not putting, I think the pockets weren't quite right, and he had made the mistake where it wasn't sitting correctly, so the balance was out. And then in the sort of like invention challenge that he was doing, he had taken that fabric and had constructed a really fitted garment, and there was no drape, and he was the one that just stuck the frill, because he's looked at it in the end and he's just like, he even said he wasn't delivering the brief, so he knew he wasn't. And then he was then heavily critiqued in the main challenge at the end, because the garment's supposed to be not fitted and floaty and volume, whereas he had fitted the top, and he was pulled up about that. So when you look at it that way round, I'm not too sure that Maria deserved to literally, I don't think she deserved to go. I think she was having a duff week, but I don't think it was, and there were other players in there as well. Also Tony W as well, he was pulled up for the execution of his bobo at the end. And, you know, Esme made a bit of a joke about it when he said, oh, don't look there. And she went, you know, oh, I won't look there, kind of thing. But I'm thinking, but then when she critiqued Maria's, I thought, oh, that was quite forceful. That was quite there. So what did you guys think?
Well, I thought, Maria's say her boo-boo had a lot of work in it and all of that. Whereas I think Tony W's was actually a really simple shape. It wasn't difficult there wasn't anything to it. I mean, yes, it looked dramatic, but because there's hardly anything to it, he should have at least got the insides of it done. I think the problem with the other Tony is he's obviously a very good technical sewer, or a good technical sewer. He's able to read instructions, follow those through, put that into work. He's able to gauge his time, so he's always kind of the one to get everything done. I think he's got the same, keep saying camouflage, that's obviously his thing, not a problem, but he's kind of sticking to that brief. But I think on the design side, then he struggles. If you give him something like that, he'll do it, but when it comes outside that, he doesn't know how to make the fabrics work for that. He's obviously used to using, I would say, a lot of sort of canvasy type, cotton type fabrics. Nothing wrong with that, but it just depends where they're sort of judging it on. I just think it was really sad for Maria to see her confidence just drop after that middle challenge, and I wondered what would have happened if that hadn't been the case, because as I said before, her garment I thought was really good in the end. Matthew, I still think Matthew, he's his designs are too ambitious for his abilities maybe a lot of the time. I think he's trying to do all this stuff, which is great, but he's technically not quite there or understanding it. So I think he's, another one that's probably in the mix sort of there, really struggling to put it off. His boo-boo worked well, though. I mean, I thought that was great. The turquoise one, I actually really liked that.
But there's a little tip on, in actual fact, you just jogged my memory on Matthew's one. So Patrick Grant pulled him up about the fact that you're using a very lightweight fabric. Do you not think that your other fabric's going to be too? And Matthew turned around and said, "Oh, I like the fact that it pulls." But then when he was looking at his finished garment, he was like, I don't like the way that it's dragging. Now, an easy way of doing that. So, for instance, I did this really huge, almost like a Goddard dress, which was completely see-through. We did obscure modesty when the model was wearing it, but literally it was all French seamed all the way through. Now, a little trick that I was taught by a very, very talented technician was you keep all the selvage edges from the chiffon, and what you do is you actually sew that into your French seam, because when you because when you pull the actual the selvage edge from the chiffon, it is strong. It's stronger than a cotton tape. That, if he had put that in the armhole and around the neckline so that the weight sat on the guy's shoulders, that would have been a really clever way of making that garment not look effortless, and that it wasn't actually pulling, because that would have given it its extra strength. Sorry, Tracy. I knew I'd written something down there.
I totally agree. So yeah, I think it was a shame to see Maria go. I'm not sure who else would have gone instead. I don't know. I think there's a few. Well, you can start seeing, unfortunately, those sort of weaknesses. But I think it was just a matter of a week where Lizzie just flew, got her confidence in that middle challenge, and when it came to the last challenge, you could tell her passion. You could feel her passion. She lived and breathed that design. She loved it. It was something that she would wear. And the same with, is it Fave? How do you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Yeah, her, the same thing, that scarlet dress at the end, her baby, she loved that. And the passion of that goes through to the judges, and that's when they're talking about the story. I think that was it a little bit as well, whereas Maria was like, oh, mine was terrible, when it actually wasn't. So, and I think they hopefully they'll look and kind of think about that as well, that if you love it yourself, that enthusiasm is going to kind of carry on as well. So sorry, delivery at the door.
It's life, Tracy. It's life.
Sorry. I mean, 1 minute.
No, it's all right. So basically, what we are talking about now is whether we agree with the winners. I think it's so subjective. It really is. Everybody has their favourites from the beginning to the end. In my head, what we should have done, Alistair, was we should have put, if I was to put now who I think the winner is, in fact, you and I will do that, put in who we think the winner is. I think it's great to hear all the backstories. What I'm really looking forward to having over the next few weeks, we do actually have some ex-Sewing Bee contestants coming on. So it would be nice to see and hear from them. We're talking about what we think happens, what might happen, at least we're going to get to hear from Stuart Hillard, who's on next week. We'll have Mark Francis coming up, and also we'll have Deborah, who was actually one of last year's finalists, who I've had a conversation with. I'm going to do no spoilers because some of the behind the scenes, shall we say, politics was really interested in and answers quite a lot of what we've been talking about. So yes, moving forward, everybody has their favourites. Yeah, it's a shame Maria's gone out. It really is. I could see other people going out before her, but it is what it is.
So so we're now at the stage where we've lost Catherine, and we've lost Maria and Jilly. So we've lost 3. So now we can start by saying, so last week I still maintain that Asthma, I think, is going to do very well, if not win it. I just think that's my feeling. But my sort of second one, I think Mia is definitely a bit of a dark horse. I think
she's a rising star. She's young. She's ambitious. She's done really well listening to briefs. She's quite good with fabrics. I think it's between, at the moment, it's between Asthma and Mia, in my opinion.
Tracy?
Mia could, sorry, Tracy.
No, you finish.
I was saying if I was a gambling person, I think I'd be putting my money on Mia, because I think she's a dark horse.
Now, if you're watching at home, please be gamble aware.
I think Maria's great. I think she needs to move away from the big sleeves. You know, we've seen a lot of the big sleeves in everything, so we need to see something else. How else are you going to be dramatic? That would be good if that's what we're asking people to do. If we want to see all round, you can't make the sleeves do the work all the time. The fashions change, and you know, if you're looking at technical abilities, you know, we need to see more than that. That would be good. I think the thing with Asma is that she is very cool. I mean, it's probably a lot of her job, I guess. She's cool under pressure. She's not panicking. She's aware of the time. She's a fast mover. She, you know, the amount of work, I know it wasn't quite there. She still took on too much in that movie, but there was so much work in that. She was sewing twice as much. If you looked at the amount of length of stitching she was doing, it's twice as much as anyone else. So I think she's definitely one. I would probably put my money on her, because I think she's listening to you, she's understanding, she's learning, because she really is taking on board what they're saying, and she's kind of focused on that task and doesn't kind of get distracted by anything else, as from what we see anyway as viewers. I know it's heavily edited, but that, so she would kind of be she is also, you know, sometimes you find the very technical people are not able to do the design side, but she's shown strengths in that as well. So I think she has got that good combination. So I agree, those two, I'd like to see a guy get through, just because you know, it's the key. We keep losing them at the early stages. I don't want to do that. I'm kind of hoping that Tony R will show a bit of design flair. I don't know whether he can do that. Maybe he's learning as he goes along, because technically I think he's quite good. So hopefully that, you know, it'd be nice to see a guy in the final, really, and to win it would be great.
And if you're watching this at home, then please let us know what you think at this stage. We're sort of week 3. Let us know what you think, and see who wins at the end. It's been great. But I am off now to drink more Savetta.
Lucky you.
You're all jealous.
Very, very jealous.
Tracy, thank you so much for taking the time to come on, because you've got a busy schedule. Thank you so much for doing the promotion for the show as well. Thank you for supporting us, and we'll see you soon.
Great to chat with you all.
Yes.
We'll just mention Tracy's discount code. So that's at owlandthesewingcat.com, and all you need to do is, this is off all of the PDF downloads. So you just need to put, when you come to checkout, you just need to put Sewing Bee either in uppercase or lowercase. The computer will work it out. It's all in one word. And that will gain you 25% off, which is very, very generous. Thank you very much, Tracy.
Thank you.
And we also, if you like, subscribe and share, one of them or all three or just two. It's entirely up to you. This week's prize is another not prize, giveaway. Giveaway. Yeah, we'll get in trouble. Literally, this is from Visaline, and you can be in it to win one of the pressing cloths, which is a pack of 2, which are fantastic things, and also some iron cleaner. So make sure that you don't just like and subscribe. Put down in the comments. You can disagree with us, you can agree with us, you can be indifferent, you can just change your mind. It's entirely up to you. But I'd like to thank everybody again, especially Tracy, for taking the time out of her busy schedule, and also to thank Kim too at the bottom there for
the last minute. And the girls, I've got to go and join them in the bar now.
Got to.
Well, you have to. So next week our guest will be Stuart Hillard. So that will be interesting. So he was on I think he was on the very first series.
First one, yes, he was, yes. Oh,
so he was the first bee. He was one of the first bees. And see how he's been a very busy bee since then. So we will get nattering with Stuart Hillard next week. So I just think we need to say ta-ta.
Thank you.
See you later. Bye. That's going to be messy, Kim.